Sometimes you need something just a little bit heavier duty than a pair of hand pruners when you're pruning in the garden. And Darlac have a really good range of heavy duty loppers. This is just one pair I've got here. This is their bypass lopper, and basically what it is a really strong, tough blade there that's sharp on one side. It's got a bevel and it works like a pair of scissors. It cuts by this fixed blade there and makes a really neat, clean cut. You can cut a branch up to 40 millimeters in diameter with these, so really good thick branches. And the great advantage of these is they've got extendable handles. So you can reach really high without balancing on ladders. But I'm actually going to use these loppers to take a thick branch out of one of the apple trees just here. And this is the ideal time to prune them. Prune them before they come into leaf. So really from November through until sort of the end of March is an ideal time. And what we tend to do with apple trees is to do a little bit of light pruning on an annual basis. This is a sort of medium-sized tree. We always try to keep the centre of the tree nice and open so we get good air circulation. So what I want to do is take off one or two of the thicker branches that are growing inwards like that, just to make sure we've got that airflow. So it's simply just a case of getting the loppers in there. Make sure that you get the branch right down into the back of the loppers, makes it easier to cut, and then it's just a case of putting some pressure on there, and we can see that's made a really clean cut there, no snags at all. It's quite a thick branch as well, so that's better out. If you've got shrubs in the garden, it's always worth checking them now and again just in case they need any branches pruning out. And I've got my loppers here. These are Anvil loppers. Anvil loppers work very simply. We've got a thick metal base here, and then the double-edged blade here, which is really sharp, cuts down onto them and makes a really clean cut. Good for hardwood as well. If you've got any dead wood or hard woody growth, they're ideal for that. And these can cut branches that are 40 millimeters in diameter, so good thick branches can be taken out with these. So what I've got here is a lovely variegated evergreen called an Eleagnus. This is called Limelight. It's got these lovely pale splodges in the middle of the leaf. It looks great in the winter when the sun shines on it. But if we look over here, we've got a branch that is green. That's reverted back to the main parent plant that it would have been originally. What happens is if we leave that in there, that will grow faster than this variegate and it will just take over. So we need to make sure that anything like that is cut out back down into the shrub where it started to grow. So it's just a case of literally tracing that back down in there, and it's quite a biggish branch. You can see right the way into the base, get the loppers around it and make a nice clean cut, and then we can take that out and we can see we've got rid of that green growth, and that allows the variegated to fill the space. So ideal for that type of pruning. I've got another pair of loppers that I want to show you, which are good if you've got anything even thicker to cut out. Now, if you've got anything really thick to prune, then this is what you need. This is the heavy duty Ratchet lopper. As you can see, if I open it up there, it's got a big jaw on it. Look, we can cut branches 60 millimeters in diameter with there. It's got this solid anvil and then this very heavy duty blade that will cut down. But because it's Ratchet, we can do it in pumping action like that. So it's really good for cutting those thicker branches where you would normally struggle to put that amount of pressure on. Plus the fact this has got extendable handles, so it's good for pruning higher up if you want to, but it also gives you that extra bit of leverage when you are cutting. So what I've got behind me here is a Sambucus, the ornamental elderberry. This is the one that's got lovely dark red leaves on there, lovely flowers as well. And what I do now and again is just cut some out. I do cut some of it back every year to get a flush of new growth, but then occasionally I take some of the lower wood down. And what I want to do is to plant more ground cover below this. So I need to get rid of this thick branch at the base. So these will be perfect for it. So it's just simply a case of getting the blade into position there. So I'm putting the anvil in there, and this sort of notch on it will hold it firmly in place, and then it's just a case of putting a bit of pressure on, and as we can see, just by pumping it, the Ratchet works its way through that thick branch, and we just use the Ratchet in a pumping action like that, and we've cut through that nice and cleanly. And then I can take off that back one at the base. Made a really good job. So those thick branches, this makes light work of it. When you've finished your pruning, you're going to have lots and lots of woody branches. Now, you might shred them or use them in other ways, but it's always a good idea if you've got just somewhere in the garden against a hedge, a wall or a fence at the back of a border, just make a little mini log pile, mini bug hotel, just snip up some of those prunings, make a little area of them, and that's great for attracting beetles and insects into the garden, just to give them somewhere to shelter, and that in turn will encourage birds into the garden as well, so it's great for wildlife. Also, what you need to remember is when you've finished with your loppers, to give them a wipe down to keep them nice and clean. Then you can get an oily cloth, a bit of oil on there just to keep them lubricated. And if they do lose their sharp edge, you can get a diamond sharpener just to keep them really, really sharp. For information on any of the products in the Darlac range, go to darlac.com.